Hello everyone, and welcome to this Christmas edition of Colin Talks Crypto. I want to welcome you to the new year 2020 we are about to embark upon, and I think it's going to be one of the most exciting years for crypto that we have seen in the past 2 or 3. In this episode, I want to talk to you about the recent price drop, the plummet in the Bitcoin price. And we're going to talk about timing is everything when it comes to entrepreneurism in crypto and in life. We're going to cover Peter Schiff's undying love for Bitcoin. I'm being sarcastic. And Richard Hart's HEX project and would I invest or not? And lastly, we're going to finish it off with some EOS, talking about the CPU fixes that are coming, Rex improvements, and Brendan Blumer, the CEO of block.one, talks about block.one creating a proxy and his high hopes for improved governance on EOS in the year 2020. Thank you very much for joining me. All right, so first of all, Bitcoin right now is $6,700, amazingly low and a good deal, and we'll get into that in a moment. Ethereum, $123, Bitcoin Cash, $178, Litecoin, $38, EOS, $228. I can't remember the last time I saw that price. If I'm not mistaken, the last time we saw an EOS $2.28 price was during the ICO. Now with Bitcoin specifically, very interesting chart here, how we topped at 20,000, we re-peaked at 14,000, but it was not the next bull run high. And we're going to zoom in here and just take a closer look. We have been going downwards, guys, for the past 6 months. Since July, the market has been steadily declining over the past 6 months. And I feel that we are getting very near the end of this decline. In fact, it is such a good deal right now that I am looking at, while I've spent all my fiat, I'm all in, guys. I'm looking at the possibility of dipping into some credit to buy at these insanely low prices here, especially with some of these altcoins. So I am not recommending that you do that. This is not financial advice. This is not investment advice. This is merely my viewpoint on the market. But when we've gone down for 6 consecutive months and we're starting to see the lowest lows for many of these altcoins that we've seen in a very long time, that indicates fear in the market and that indicates accumulation. So I feel that right now would be a smart time, especially if you don't have a good sizable holding. This is when I would be getting into the market right now and adding to my portfolio. And like I said, I'm looking at doing that right now. If it drops further, I will be buying more crypto and I will figure out a way on how to do that. I value crypto holdings more than I value debt itself because I feel that the pace of crypto valuation surpasses even interest. Okay, again, not recommending that to anyone else. And I wanted to share a little anecdote with you guys. So I was at the Crypto Monday in San Juan. This is every Monday. Here's the address. If you live in Puerto Rico, you can attend 7 to 10 p.m. Usually starts more like 8:30 p.m. Island Lifetime. And this Monday, we had Steve Beauregard, I don't know if I said his last name right, the founder of GoCoin. And here's his site. Basically, what it is a BitPay alternative, but one that's been around for quite a while. And Steve basically just talked to us for a while about what he's done, how his business came to be. And you can see that right now they accept about 6 different cryptocurrencies: Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, Dash, and EOS. And I wanted to just share one anecdote that he told us. And this is in regards to being an entrepreneur, building something. And this applies, I feel, to life. This applies to relationships. This applies to just about anything that anyone could do. And that is the subject of timing. And as you can guess, that applies very much to cryptocurrency, buying, selling, trading, etc. Timing is everything. You know, you can make the right trade, but the wrong time, and it can be utterly devastating. Or you can make the right trade at the right time and become a multimillionaire. It's really that big of a deal. And he made an analogy, which I really loved. And he talked about how timing is related to a wave. Like if you were a surfer, right? Now, if you're a surfer, you have to get onto that wave right at the moment where it picks up speed and it starts to crest over and ride that wave at its maximum velocity. And if you do that, you can make it very, very far. But if your timing is off, for example, let's say that you created Uber, right? But it was before your time. It was before that there were cell phones, smartphones, right? Let's say that there was only Blackberries and flip phones, but you had this idea for this ride sharing service that would be potentially a very good idea, right? In the years to come. Well, you would have come too early. If all there were Blackberries and flip phones, none of these smartphones, you would have been too early. And despite your idea being actually very ingenious, the fact that your timing was off meant that it wouldn't be successful. It would have been a flop. It would have been a complete fail. And had you waited until we had smartphones and the ability to use GPS and a map and integrate that with the service, suddenly that great idea not only is just a great idea in concept, but in actuality, where people can make millions and billions of dollars on this idea. And the only difference between that and a decade earlier was the timing. And the same goes for being too late. If the wave has already crashed over and you are trying to hop on to something that's already passed, you're too late to the game. There's no money to be made in that. Likely someone else has already ridden that wave. And so the moral of the story was essentially that timing is very crucial in being an entrepreneur. And I thought that was a really good lesson. And like I said, it's applicable in everything from trading, entrepreneurship, and relationships. Let's say that the love of your life is on the subway and you get on the next subway train and you don't meet them. Well, then you never even had a chance to meet the love of your life, right? Timing is everything. But if you happen to get on that right exact subway train and met that person, you might just spend the next 50 years together. So that's how I like to look at things. Timing is very important. I loved what he said. I thought that was really wise advice. And if you guys are in town in San Juan, Puerto Rico on any Monday night, I recommend you drop by the Crypto Mondays. Pedro does an awesome job of hosting this. He asks a lot of good questions, and sometimes there's some really amazing speakers. And so far, both times that I've been there, Brock Pierce has been there as well, either in the background making business deals, VC deals, or speaking as one of the main speakers. So there's my shout out to Crypto Mondays. And once again, Peter Schiff expresses his undying love for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. If you're not familiar, Peter Schiff, he actually lives in Puerto Rico nearby me, but he just loves Bitcoin. And I mean that with the utmost sarcasm. Here's a tweet from him yesterday. He says, "The good news is that all the millennial Bitcoin holders who are about to get wiped out in Bitcoin are still young enough to make their money back. They will also have a lifetime to benefit from the wisdom that comes from losing money and learning from your mistakes." Wise words, Peter. My God. 2,300 likes. Anyways, I had to chime in on that one. And I just said to him, it's funny how you can't look back more than a year with Bitcoin, because he's comparing it to the all-time high of just a few years ago. And yet with gold, you can justify its relatively small gains over many decades. Selective ignorance and cognitive bias. If I haven't ever seen it, there it is. Peter's a very smart guy. And actually, I really respect his intelligence on most topics. In fact, I listened to many of his podcasts on my decision to come to Puerto Rico to take advantage of the Act 22 0% on capital gains. And I respect his knowledge tremendously, but I think that he is so invested in gold that it clouds his vision utterly, and he is missing the greatest transformative economic technology ever to hit Earth. And right there, I think he's falling flat on his frickin' face. And I just have to be blunt about that. So love Peter Schiff. My God, man, what are you missing? You are missing big time. And not only is he missing it, but he's acting like people who are into Bitcoin are stupid. I mean, he's actively making fun of people who are into it. So he could just be quiet and not like it, but he's actually taking an active role and attacking Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And that, I think, is a very sloppy, amateurish mistake on a new asset class that's probably going to clean the clock and wipe the slate with the likes of gold market cap in the coming 5 years. I am willing to bet that the value of Bitcoin and all cryptocurrencies combined will surpass that of gold in the next 5 years. Mark my words. Peter Schiff, mark my words. All right, guys, and I'm going to cover HEX now. It seems to be a trending topic, so let's get into it a little bit here. This is the website. This is Richard Hart, the creator of it. He's got a YouTube channel. He's actually helped me figure out how to get this mic right here. I asked him a while ago what recording equipment he used, and he shared it with me. And so I bought everything he shared with me, and it works great. So actually, I really appreciate that. Now, as far as HEX goes, I can't say I'm as appreciative. I think that this particular Medium article does a fantastic job of breaking down why I also personally would not recommend buying HEX. This article is called Under a HEX by Goldman Sachs. A very well-written article, very well documented and backed up with facts and intelligent points here. So I would highly recommend that everyone takes the 10 minutes to read this article under a hex. Now just to keep this short and not give this too much airtime, I made some notes that summarizes my viewpoint of what Richard is doing with hex, okay? So I'm just going to read that to you. Here's the main points. Richard Hart is an extremely intelligent guy. He has a strong grasp of many technical, low-level Bitcoin and cryptocurrency topics. However, intelligence doesn't always equate to looking out for others. Richard will claim impunity in the form of free market, but I believe hex is simply an elaborate and complex play on the ignorance/stupidity of investors. Its complexity obscures its nature, and so does Richard Hart's words. He's a very well-articulated person. It's too bad the nature of his intentions don't match his technical prowess and speaking ability. If I were to summarize this, I'd say Richard is essentially a genius at getting people to send him tokens of real value, Ethereum. Hex will probably pump and dump several times, but on a longer time frame, I see the value of hex dropping, just like so many other coins on CoinMarketCap. If you asked me, would I rather hold 1,000 ETH or 1,000 ETH equivalent of hex for the next 5 or 10 years, which one would I rather hold? ETH 100%. So that's how I feel about hex, guys, in a very summarized form. And again, I highly recommend you read this article under a hex. He backs it up. I mean, there's some highlights here. Not only will Richard control close to half of all hex tokens after the first year, this is how it's designed, but it is the first token that this author has ever seen to have its founder's perpetual self-enrichment baked into the protocol. And he explains this below, and I think you'll be pretty blown away. So my recommendation is do not put any money into hex. I really don't think it's a smart idea. That's just what I'm doing. I'm not putting money into hex. Do your own research, do your own due diligence. Just don't get taken advantage of. Read this article first if you're going to think about putting a single ETH into hex, and then at least you'll have done some due diligence. On the other hand, you can claim your existing hex airdrop that if you have any Bitcoin, right, you can claim the hex that's associated with that Bitcoin address. And in that light, okay, fine, get some free hex. I think if I recall correctly from what I read in this article, I'll have to read this again, but even by claiming the free hex that you have, you end up inadvertently enriching Richard Hart even further. So it's a bit of a win-lose situation there. You might end up making Richard some free cash on the back of ignorant and stupid investors as well. And I want to add that I do feel like there actually are a number of innovative principles in the hex token. The technology seems pretty advanced. He's got some complex things going on here. And I actually watched the entire hour-long interview with Omar, or maybe it was 2 hours long, interviewing Richard Hart just a few days ago. And all I can say is, like I said, the guy's a genius. The guy knows his stuff. He's created a very advanced, overly complicated, possibly, coin. He's had it audited multiple times, yada, yada. And if it wasn't for the self-enrichment aspect of this, if it wasn't for the fact that there's some anonymous account that just gets funds funded to it, which is very likely to be Richard's, there's no proof, and he can't say that for legal reasons, but I'd be willing to bet that it's his. The fact that there are these factors of self-enrichment so deeply baked into the protocol, that is why I would stay 1,000 feet away from this. The end. That's my recap on the subject of hex. Do your own due diligence. Okay, and on to some EOS topics. So there's a lot of things changing in the land of EOS right now, and for the better, I'm happy to say. There are some changes happening to the REX. As you may have been aware, there has been some congestion in the past month or two when it comes to CPU. Most low token holding users don't have enough CPU staked to perform a transaction, so then they're forced to find an alternative method, and it became very difficult, to say the least. And that has not gone unnoticed. Also, I just want to back up a step and say that while many of us were very convinced that the top 21 was doing absolutely nothing to fix the CPU issues, it's not true. I didn't know this because I think there's a bit of a communication gap between the East and the West. But the top 21 very much were working on solutions. In fact, they had actually coded a solution, and block.one was testing it. And what was found, and this is from Eve of EOS Nation, who told me this, because I wouldn't have known from the East what was happening. But basically, when this was being tested, this fix for the CPU and the REX was being tested, it was found that it actually would lose funds if implemented. And so it was not put in place. And the way that the REX is currently coded, It may cause some difficulty for low token holding users to be able to make transactions with CPU, right? But it's not going to lose funds. So the current REX is not going to lose any funds. And the fix that everyone was on board with and trying to put into place, unfortunately, due to the way that REX itself was coded, would have led to the loss of funds. And so the actual reason for the CPU issues not being fixed more quickly was due to the inherent coding and the nature of the REX itself as originally designed. And that was none of the top 21 block producers' fault. It just wasn't caught by anyone up until the EIDOS airdrop had occurred. So I just wanted to shed some light on the nature and the mindset of the top 21 BPs. They were working hard on this. And so what that meant is it required a bit of a deeper reworking. And now we have that reworking. And block.one and the REX are being redesigned and improved. So there's going to be a REX like 2.0 coming out. And it's going to change things quite a bit. And so I want to read this to you from RectKid on Twitter. He summarized these changes superlatively. This is the changes to the REX on EOS. Unlike before, no one has any rights to CPU or net via staking. These resources are now owned by the system. And I'll just explain these things as we read along here. But if you remember, up until today even, you own the net, you own the bandwidth, you own the RAM. And that's how the model is. It's like real estate, a blockchain of real estate. Well, that's going to be flipped on its head. And I think, as he says here, overall, this is a good thing for EOS. It is a big change. You're no longer going to own the bandwidth. You're no longer going to own the CPU. They're going to be owned by the system, and dApps or users of those resources will then rent them from the system. So it's a little bit different of a model. So if you're a dApp, dApps will need to rent resources from the system every 30 days. They pay for rentals using EOS tokens. The fees go into REX. So no longer will dApps be able to buy all the tokens they need and own them outright. They will rent them every 30 days. Now, if you're an investor or a token holder, this is how it works. Investors who own EOS tokens can put their EOS into the REX and collect a proportionate weight of the fees being paid into the REX, which are resource rentals, name auction, RAM trading fees, etc. So what does all this mean? This means that the old analogy of digital real estate is dead. The EOS token does not entitle you resources on the network any longer. It becomes a sort of payment token to purchase the rental of resources, as well as a way to collect dividends on rentals. dApps will have to keep renting resources to keep running. This is a departure from the old model of buying their stake with the option of selling it later down the road, which is not a good model anyway, because the token price can be very volatile. This new model should make resources cheaper and more abundant, solving the CPU crisis. Resources are cheap when the network is not busy and become more expensive as the network becomes more congested. In the bigger picture, it reinforces the idea that dApps and wallets should be paying for users' resources. It is not intended for end users to have to rent their own resources, which is not a good user experience. And really, this just further models the way the internet already works. If you jump onto Twitter or Facebook or Telegram, as a user, you don't pay anything. You're not expected to pay anything. That would be friction entered into the system. So really what we've had with the CPU, the congestion, needing resources on a user end is really inhibitive of the user experience. So I'm actually pretty pumped about this change because it's going to recreate the model that is successful by removing all friction from the user experience and putting it on the dApp end of things. The dApp has to rent the resources to allow you to interact with their smart contract or their platform or their resources. And that's the same as Twitter, Telegram, and Facebook. You don't have to buy tokens to use their platforms. You don't have to pay anything. And of course, they monetize you in other ways, and that's what Voice is going to solve. You know, they advertise to you, or they monetize off your content, or they farm your data. Well, Voice is going to solve that. But in the meantime, what we're going to have is a return to applications fronting the cost and users having not to pay anything. So overall, I think that this is a great change for dApps because they're going to get a lot more users who don't have to figure out the mechanics of staking to CPU or having enough CPU time. They can just enjoy the application. And the dApp developers, the experts who know what they're doing, like the Twitter backend guys or the Facebook backend guys or the Telegram coders, they can be responsible for managing all the resources on behalf of the users. So I'm excited about this. I think that this will strengthen EOS. I think that it's a good move. Yeah, there's a little bit of a loss, like, oh, darn, all those resources that I thought I owned, right? That was my real estate. I no longer own it. But you know what? I'd much rather have a dApp using it to get users to increase the value of the EOS token. And I'll make passive income off of it anyways in the REX. So I'm happy either way. And when I need some resources, I can just rent it. No problem. All right. And lastly, we are going to get into some Brendan Blumer, the CEO of block.one, has shed some light on things like his own idea for a proxy. When is block.one going to be voting? So Brendan Blumer started off with a fairly innocuous tweet. It said, the EOS community keeps me company when I'm traveling alone for long periods of time. Thanks. And of course, we wanted to know some things. So Jorge Rubio asked, voting before Christmas? And Brendan replied, and he said, we need more than just a vote. We need a transparent, decentralized, and competitive collective proxy to give token holders another option to drive progress with their vote. I'm obviously very excited, but don't get your hopes up because I'm not into letting people down. So he's not giving us a date. He's not even promising anything specific, but he's sure dropping some hints here. A proxy, a collective proxy, a transparent, decentralized, and competitive collective proxy. Interesting. So immediately what went off in my head when I read that was awesome and oh boy, is this going to be a mistake? Are they going to let BPs, are they going to let whales pick the BPs with some kind of a DAC? That would be a tremendous mistake because the token voting weight of existing whales is already being put forth to vote in the top BPs. So if there was a sort of a DAC system where whales could then vote in the selections that the block.one 100 million tokens would vote for, that would be an utter mistake in my opinion, because you'd basically just be further strengthening whale votes that have already dictated the top 21. So what we need is block.one to select their own top 21 or top 30 block producers, their own decision, and then we can choose to support their proxy or not. And they should put their 100 million tokens behind their proxy. And I stated that here. I said that I feel a DAC-based proxy would merely amplify existing whales BP selections. A regular proxy with BPs picked by block.one would be perfect. And Brendan said, it's sort of ambiguous here, a proxy can be attached to anything. And I don't exactly know what he means there. Dallas Johnson took a guess and he said, well, I guess this could be hinting that a proxy could be attached to voice. That'd be pretty cool. Then we could have a one user, one vote as uniquely identified through the voice identity solution. Would be awesome. It's kind of what we've all been hoping for a long time. But Brendan declined that. He said, that's eventually interesting, but right now I think we need something faster and more practically competitive. So that's a good thing. It looks like block.one is working quickly on bringing to fruition a proxy that somehow involves their votes and the community as well, a collaborative creation. And later, again, another mysterious answer here. Brendan says, we want to be part of something bigger in regards to a block.one proxy. So what do you guys think this could be? What kind of proxy could block.one be working on that's something bigger, that's practically competitive, that is decentralized, transparent, and competitive collective proxy? What could that be? What form could that take? Would they perhaps reward voters of their proxy to compete or exceed the rates by current rewards proxies? If so, perhaps that would be a good way to onboard an enormous number of voters and put into place some governance changes that are sorely needed. Because Brendan Blumer has also hinted at being very excited about governance improvements in 2020. And I'll put the tweet on the screen here so you can see that as well. So a lot of things, positive things coming down the pipeline for EOS. That is why I am still holding strong with my tokens. That is why I feel the future is very bright for EOS, despite its very, very low price right now of $2.26. A good accumulation opportunity, if nothing else. So I'm looking forward to the improved governance in 2020. I'm looking forward to block.one's proxy. I'm looking forward to the revamped REX and the fixed CPU and the new model for rewarding stakers in the REX. So there's so much to be excited about. Also, in other news, block.one has opened up a new grants program to fund EOS IO projects, that's all chains, and community members, offering up to $50,000 for development, adoption, and promotion of EOS IO. Many people like to claim how block.one has received $4 billion of funding and what are they doing with it, and they've taken it and run with it. Well, here's an example where that's not the case. They are giving back to the community up to $50,000 at a time for those who are helping the community. And so if you click on the grants application, you actually can see a bunch of information on this, and you can apply to join the fund. And you click down here on apply for funding. And there's a template which gives you examples of what to submit and a bunch of information to include in your application. So maybe some of you hard workers out there, some of you project builders and developers can make a quick buck with some funding from the new grant program from block.one. All right, and I want to just briefly touch upon my proxy. It's been doing very well. It's at 3.5 million voters. Thank you so much to you guys who are entrusting me with your vote. I will treat it responsibly as always, and I will put it to good use. I've voted on the new proposal from the PEOS team to implement new functions to the EOS blockchain. And I just want to welcome the newest BP members of the proxy, and that is Beijing and Nudex, two value-adding BPs who have contributed immensely to the ecosystem. I'm really enjoying getting to know the Eastern BPs because they have done many great things, and I am engaging with them on WeChat, in Telegram, on Twitter, and just learning to the best of my ability what they have been up to because they have done quite a lot. So Nudex and Beijing are welcome additions. And I'm working on Cypherglass, and they're very close. They've told me they're thinking about it, and they think they want to join. So if you guys want to see Cypherglass join the Colin Talks Crypto Rewards Proxy, please give them a friendly nudge and encouragement to do so. Every BP that we add to the proxy increases the rewards to the voters. You can simultaneously stake on the REX and delegate your vote to the rewards proxy, and you will get both sources of income passively. So that was a common question. You may definitely loan your tokens on the REX and vote for my rewards proxy. And I want to make it very clear that I will put your tokens to good use. There are several governance proposal improvement ideas on the forefront, whether it's EOS New York's or Dan Larimer's staking pool idea. And they need to be coded, they need to be tested, and they need to be implemented and in a votable form. And when that's all been done and we see the best option or options, I guarantee you I will be active and voting for the implementation of those upgrades to the EOS network because we need them. And I know that many of you have been waiting on it just like I have. So just know that I am not an inactive proxy. I am very much keeping up to date with the latest affairs, and I will put your tokens to good use. So in the future, we may have an improved governance model because you're voting for the Colin Talks Crypto, either rewards proxy or the non-rewards proxy. Both of them will be active in the governance voting. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you for being with me on this Christmas holiday. I hope you guys have the merriest Christmas, the happiest holiday, the best New Year, and we will reunite again soon.